Horatio's got serious woman problems in CSI Miami at 9 now, though Dick Warner pays his respects to a watery grave in Waterways.
Dublin seems a long way behind. The whole length of the Grand Canal, a good bit of the River Shannon and half of Lough Derg. 45M has chugged across 5 counties with her cargo of bricks and beer. But there's still a lot of water between us and our quayside in Limerick. The boat's blunt and battered nose out from Drumineer into the lake. The vastness of this piece of water establishes itself immediately. That's the main reason they were fond of islands, like Holy Island. There they sat, with their backs to one another, speaking only to God, and with a tower to escape into if a boat appeared on the horizon.
It was originally, in the early days of the monastery here, it was called Inishcaltra. Then in the later Middle Ages it was known as Insula Sanctorum, the Island of Saints, and that seems to have become, in the English vernacular, Holy Island. I suppose because there were holy men reputed to be here. And indeed it had a reputation in the Middle Ages as a place particularly of anchorites or hermits.
Liam was head of a team which spent 10 summers excavating the secrets of Holy Island, searching for the footprints of earlier river travellers.
What I found here was that there had been, from the very earliest days, a shrine. And the shrine was originally of wood. It stood in a rectangular fenced enclosure. It was physically exactly like the shrines you find at Celtic religious sites in Britain and Gaul, France. But it was quite a small monastery. I think the original settlement here was simply to tend the shrine. The oldest stone building here is St. Caimin's Church, as it's called, at least the older part of St. Caimin's Church, which is roughly contemporary with the Round Tower. And both of those are probably the result of the patronage of Brian Boru, who we know built a number of things around the shores of the lake. After that, the place was particularly known as a place of pilgrimage. There was a huge pattern or seasonal pilgrimage here at Whit, which lasted for several days. When we first have, as it were, estimates of the numbers in the 17th century, 15,000 people used to gather on the island. And I found a great deal of evidence of the development, in the tourist sense, of the island from the 13th century onwards to cater for very large numbers of people visiting it, doing their rounds and saying their little prayers at various spots and so on. That went on until the 19th century. The one activity has been continuous from beginning to end is burial. It's still a burial place. John Tiernan, who died in 1973, I was at his funeral, used to come out here while I was digging with his dog. They're a great river family. They built boats. They were based on Island Moor, the biggest island on the lake, and his children still live at various places around the lake. They built these Shannon boats. these wooden boats, rowing boats, and I think their tradition of boat building goes back a very long way. Obviously, with the Shannon being such an important roadway, boat building must have been a very important occupation here for many centuries.
Archaeologists dig down, layer after layer. This journey has given me the impression that civilizations are built up by the same process in reverse. The monks lost their battle for independence from Rome, were robbed by Scandinavian pirates, dispossessed by Henry VIII. Their layer is now buried, but it's contributed to what we are. If they'd never existed, Dick Carney and myself would be different people in a different world.
Getting rough out there, Dick.
It is getting rough. They're in their short sleeves out there now.
I know what you mean. Where's Parker's Point?
Parker's Point, it's right across facing you there, see it?
We have to go around that tomorrow
Yes,
to get to Killaloe.
yes, you'll have to come out of Gary Kennedy, turn left, go between the Scilly Island and Tipperary shore.
It's got a bad reputation, Parker's Point.
It has. It can be very rough.
Why is that?
You get the whole wind down from the Scariff Bay, right down on top of you.
And it builds up just very rough seas there at the point.
It can build up very rough there, yes.
Is that what happened to 45M before?
That's what happened.
An awful lot of boatsmen seem to have died on the job, hearing people talk.
They did. A lot died on it. And they were working 24 hours. They were up all hours of the night. And they were tired and got up half asleep and maybe fell out into the canal.
But a bit careless.
A bit careless, that's right. Got too
Easily done, I suppose.
very easily done.
Have to concentrate around the boat.
You have.
I'd say if this weather doesn't drop, they're going to be concentrating going around Parker's Point.
Oh, we can wait in Gary Kennedy till it's calm.
I think that's a much better idea.
It is.
We might get the pint there anyway.
Yes, we get it.
The journey up to now has been really enjoyable for Dick Carney, for Declan and myself. There's also been a certain amount of stress to meet the schedule, keep our elderly and temperamental boat performing for the cameras. And as we get nearer to the site of the tragedy, the stress seems to be increasing. But there are good traditional ways of dealing with situations like this. And I don't mean that music and pints are the only answer to stress. Today the main business of the waterway is relaxation. A very different business to the one 45M was brought up to, but one that thrives and prospers. Gary Kennedy in summer is always full, choked, congested by people teeming in to get away from the crowds, from traffic jams, from congestion. But they seem to find what they're looking for amongst the paradoxes.
I mean, it's absolutely heavenly here. What more could you ask for? Peace and quiet, and also the ability to be able to move around from place to place. That's great, that you're not just stuck in one place. I mean, we're here in Gary Kennedy at the moment. Yesterday we were in Killaloe. Tomorrow we could be in Portumna. So we're moving to different locations all the time, and that's interesting. This is our second year. We had a smaller boat last year, a 4 berth. But I think with 2 children, really, you need a 6 berth, because then we can keep the table area made up all of the time. The kids sleep up in the bow. We sleep in the aft cabin. The initial cost, again, depending on what you go for. I mean, the Seamaster would be about £25,000 worth. I mean, you can spend up to 100,000 if you have the money, but you can get on the river for as little as 10.
We're leaving the pleasures of Gary Kennedy astern. The weather's calm but set to deteriorate. We're heading for Parker's Point, the Bermuda Triangle of the Irish inland waterways. "45M left here one December evening in 1946, accompanied by the tugboat St. James. She got less than a mile before she sank in rough seas. 3 men died. 1 floated ashore on a plank. Today, the St. James has been converted into a houseboat. Again, she is our escort, in tribute to the 3 lost men. It's a significant moment. These 2 boats were together during a moment of crisis. They've been divorced for nearly half a century, plotted their own separate and different courses. Now, there's a reunion. I feel that 45M has developed such a personality over the past 10 days that it's almost impossible to suppress the fantasy that she must have words to say to the escort who abandoned her in her hour of need. All of us are very conscious of the significance of this event. The tragedy occurred in the year I was born, but 45 years later, it's still controversial, still bitter, still topical on a waterway with a memory as long as time. The tribute was initially conceived as a piece of television, but something hijacked it. It became very moving, and there was no need for anyone, myself, Declan or Dick Carney, to do any acting. Three men lost their lives. They went down with their ship, 45M, down into 100 feet of cold December water off Parker's Point. There, on the dark lake bottom, the boat, our boat, lay for 30 years in cryogenic limbo. Boats, however, are not like people. They can be salvaged, and 45M was raised and renovated. She survived to carry us on our historic journey. Then a remarkable thing happens, one of the most remarkable events of the whole journey. a fleet appears. A fleet of cruisers, yachts and converted barges. Word has gone out over the great gossip system of the waterway. Nowadays, most of the larger boats on the Shannon have ship-to-ship VHF radios, and we've been a topic of broadcast. The convoy forms with 45M in the lead, the St. James on our quarter, the rest in our wake. A wordless tribute to the 3 lost men and all the many lives claimed by the waterway. For me at least, a ghost has been laid. 45M's story has been a subliminal worry for weeks. Now I feel the worry has been left astern. A requiem is a celebration the same way that a wake is a party. And looking back at the other boats, brightly painted flying flags, there's almost a carnival atmosphere. I wish we had a radio. I'd like to hear what they're saying to each other. Somehow, I don't think it's gloomy philosophizing about death on the lake, sinking and salvage, the 45M and the St. James. More likely well-laid plans for gin and tonic in Scariff Harbour. Disperses. Only the St. James follows us into the calm narrows that lead to Killaloe and the end of the Great Lake. There's one small reminder. The float planes are mainly used in the rescue and salvage of modern casualties, hire cruisers in difficulties. Killaloe is a boat-encrusted town where the yellow welly reigns. Along this shore, everybody is looking out of eye corners at the next boat along. It's an unfortunate fact of yachting life that the ideal boat is one 2.5 feet longer than the one you have. A touch of floating suburbia about this. Fox Rock on the water. Montenotte-sur-Mer. But 45M heads for the other shore. She has the waterway's equivalent of street credibility. We slip in and tie up at the mouth of the old canal that bypasses the marinas. Across the river from the 100 grand status symbols, I sit in the small caboose and write up my lamplit logbook. I feel a melancholy nostalgia for a simpler age of craftsmanship, a life of honest toil, which of course is nonsense. Tipperary Crystal, blowing glass ornaments on the eastern shore, sells its products to the very people that skipper the expensive boats. It's business as usual, and business is what launched 45M on the water 90 years ago. Let's not get too immersed in sophomoric radicalism. Instead, admire the skill of hands. Hands which can build a boat, splice a rope, or turn silica sand into the crystalline glories of mantelpiece art. The form that lies within is revealed by the craftsman.
when I was a young fella, we used to walk down to Haley's Bridge. That's outside the Robertstown. And we used to sail up in the boats, just to get a sail up the Robertstown Bridge. It used to be great. We used to be off, maybe setting the fours down the Haley's back, we call them, setting them on fire. They run away to get to hear the boat coming on, and we get in on them and sail back up the Robertstown. They were all great crowd of lads. Great.
Hard life, but it was good. Like all the places, like there was always a dancer, Tullamore, Edenderry, and Dublin was great. We'd all Parnell Square there with the teachers and AOH and the National, and well, that was the Bamba at that time, and all Parnell Square. It was a great time.
Bill Haley came out that time, and his comments that changed our style of dance. He started off with his mother. It's still there. we'll never get rid of it.
We set off down the narrow canal with another cargo of memory to add to our 10 tons of bricks and 50 kegs of beer. Everywhere that we've been, quiet, strong men of middle years have appeared to give diffident evidence of the Waterways past. The passion that they feel for the river, lake and canal is powerful but controlled, nostalgia underpinned by common sense. We've heard a lot of this testimony over the past couple of weeks, seen a compulsion to make us grasp what used to be there. We've listened because we realise how close the waterway came to disappearing entirely, and what a tragedy that would have been. A few dedicated individuals just managed to save something of inestimable value to us all.
Well, the Inland Waterways Association was set up in the 1950s when the waterways were going through a very, very lean period, and there was a grave danger that some of the opening bridges on the Shannon would become fixed bridges when they were replaced. And this, in the case of Tarman, Barry and Ruski, would have limited the headroom and virtually strangled the Shannon. And there was quite a good case for the local authorities to make at the time to do this work, because there was very little traffic on the river. So the association was set up to protect the Shannon initially. And then when we had saved the Shannon, we then found ourselves with a struggle on our hands to preserve the circular line of the Grand Canal, which again people were looking at with envious eyes for laying pipes in the bed of it and putting concrete over the top of it and turning it into a motorway.
This canal, having escaped the fate of being turned into a motorway, poses a basic problem of boat handling. It's the concept of steerage wave, which can be explained by the fact of physics that a rudder doesn't work below a certain minimum speed. This presents a stark dilemma for helmsmen: either go too slow and lose control over your craft, or go too fast and risk your 50 tons of steel crushing a fiberglass hull like the shell of an egg. We get through the narrow boat-line channel without a major incident, but there are some anxious moments. St. Flannan was a Dalcassian, a direct ancestor of Brian Boru. St. Flannan's Cathedral was built a couple of centuries after the Battle of Clontarf by other Dalcassians who were grappling with an ultra-modern architectural style that had just arrived in from Europe, the Gothic. It's a relief when the banks widen out. The last lake, a new lake, one that was created by the pent-up waters behind the massive dam of Ardnacrusher. We're approaching the final challenge, entering the headrace of the dam. Limerick and Journey's End begin to seem a possibility.